But before we begin, we would like to acknowledge the land that we're currently on. We occupy ancestral Ho-Chunk land, a place their nation has called Dejop since time immemorial. In an 1832 treaty, the Ho-Chunk were forced to cede this territory. Decades of ethnic cleansing followed when both the federal and state government repeatedly but unsuccessfully sought to forcibly remove the Ho-Chunk from Wisconsin. This history of colonization informs our shared future of collaboration and innovation. Today, we respect the inherent sovereignty of the Ho-Chunk Nation, along with the 11 other First Nations of Wisconsin.
Thank you so much, Xanthi. We'll kick off by seeing who's all in the room today. We have a drum roll, please. Over 30 schools represented, with Wanakee High School in the lead for the most students represented. But that's not all, folks, because on this slide, we have all of the tremendous organizations represented at our conference today. You'll have the chance to check them out and get involved at the Ideas Fader later today. Now, I'm going to hand over the mic to Amila with some important updates.
Thank you, Krishna. I would like to thank you guys all for coming here, and a couple housekeeping sorts of things. If you're wondering where the bathrooms are, if you go through that door and turn left, go down the hallway a little bit, you'll find some bathrooms there. Otherwise, you can go out this hallway, go all the way to the elevators and turn left, and you'll see the bathrooms on your left over there. So hopefully that qualifies as an important update. I'd also like to thank the biology department, the STEM Center for helping us use this space without any charge. Also for Madison College Catering for the wonderful lunch, breakfast, and snacks that they'll be providing, and also for event services for setting all of this up for us. And then my last announcement is that I want to introduce you to Chester the Digester. And Chester is a biodigesting machine, and you can put anything organic, including things like napkins and paper plates, even things like dairy or cheese that you normally wouldn't put in a compost pile. And so Chester is a machine that lives behind the culinary services, because we have a culinary program and they produce a lot of organic waste. And so our school purchased Chester to reduce the amount of greenhouse gases that would be produced by the breakdown of those materials in a landfill. So there's a trash can over here by that sign. There's also a trash can in the back. Nate, can you wave? That's Nate over there. He's sitting next to another bucket. So any of your organic waste can go in the buckets aside from the trash cans. And in 24 hours, it turns into this with the power of heat and microbes. So make use of Chester. All right, and I think now we're back to Isaac.
Thank you again, Armilla and Madison College. We are so grateful to have worked with all of you. Okay, this morning, this is our agenda before lunch. We've just finished up registration and met our table mates. So if you haven't introduced yourself to the others at your table, please do so. And we're about to hear from our first keynote speaker, Charles Hua. Then we'll have an exciting roundtable discussion led by Dr. Michaela Callis. To hear from you all about what you're doing at your high school. And finally, we'll break for lunch. So next we have Akanksha to introduce Charles Hua. Thank you.
Hey everyone, good morning. Thank you all so much for being here. Thanks, Isaac. As you mentioned, we're very excited to welcome our first keynote speaker, Charles Hua. Charles Hua is a policy analyst at Rewiring America. Previously, he has helped develop and write Harvard Sustainability Plan, advised companies and nonprofits on sustainability issues, and served on the board of directors for environmental nonprofits, Slipstream, Energy News Network, and Clean Wisconsin. Born and raised in Madison, Wisconsin, Charles organized a campaign that successfully petitioned his school district to become the largest in the U.S. at the time with a 100% renewable energy goal. For his work, Charles has been recognized by the White House as a U.S. Presidential Scholar, by the Aspen Institute as a Future Climate Leader, and as an Energy News Network 40 Under 40 honoree. Charles holds a degree in statistics and mathematics from Harvard College. Welcome, Charles Hua.
Can you all hear me okay? Awesome. Well, thanks so much for having me here today and for being here on a Saturday this early in the morning. It's so awesome to see all of you in the crowd and how engaged on climate justice, environmental and sustainability issues. Just super thrilled to be here. So today I'm kind of going to share a little bit about my climate journey so far, and I'm going to do it in 5 parts. And each of these parts is meant to, it's loosely in chronological order, so taking you through kind of how I first got into climate and how I've developed that interest since. But along the way, hopefully we'll be able to share some nuggets of advice that may or may not become useful to folks in the crowd. So the first part I've titled just "Be a Sponge." So let's see what that means. So this was me. I honestly don't know when that was. I just found it the other day, and this was me as a kid in front of a MG&E solar display. And I start here because the very start of my climate journey was actually when I was very young, when I was in the 2nd grade at Van Hise Elementary School. And our 2nd grade teacher taught us about Al Gore and An Inconvenient Truth. How many people have seen or read An Inconvenient Truth? Okay. Good number of folks in the audience. But hopefully everybody knows who Al Gore is. So in 2nd grade, actually I'm just going to go back a slide. In 2nd grade, our teacher really taught me 2 things. The first thing was climate change. He taught us about Al Gore. This was back in 2007 when very few people nationally were really focused on climate change. And the second thing that he taught us was the importance of taking initiative and taking action. And so anytime students in the class would do something to take initiative, whether it was just picking up a piece of paper on the ground and tossing in the recycling bin, he would call us Captain Initiative. And I really took that to heart, which is kind of funny to say. I mean, in 2nd grade, I don't think I really understood the real importance of that. But by the end of the year, when we were working on a newspaper, class newspaper, where each of us had to write an article, I ended up writing mine on solar. And it's interesting looking back for me to read some of this. There's actually a part in there that says, by the time you're an adult, the US will have either chosen to use a lot of solar power or nuclear power. Neither of which is fully true yet, but we're getting there. So then around this time in 2007, there was a big tornado in Greensburg, Kansas, small town, very small town. But as a class, this was our really big chance to heed the advice of our teacher, climate change, take initiative, and do something about it. So what did we do? Well, we recognized that tornadoes and natural disasters were in part a reflection of the climate crisis that we were living in. And we decided to start a fundraiser to help support the rebuild of this town. How did we do that? Well, we wrote a hip hop album because that makes so much sense. But you know, looking back, these are I don't remember a single word or even really how we came to this, but it actually is it's not bad. It's not bad. And I'll try to find the link so folks can listen to it. But it's if you want to hear a bunch of 2nd graders rapping about clean electricity and climate change and sustainable food, and you have 5 minutes to waste, you're more than welcome to take a listen. So we ended up raising $1,000, which is not bad for some 2nd grade kids. We sold a bunch of newspapers. We sold a bunch of these CDs. Apparently some parents decided that it was worth buying. And it turns out that Greensburg, Kansas has successfully rebuilt fully sustainably and is now powered by 100% renewable electricity. So let that sink in. Not many communities in this country can claim that they're nearly even close to that, but they, after being hit by a devastating tornado, were able to rebuild. So when I say absorb everything, what that really means is just there's so much information and opportunity and news, both good and bad, about the climate crisis, about clean energy out there. You don't need to feel like you need to have all the solutions or the answers. Nobody does, especially the adults in the room. I'm just kidding. But you don't need to have the pressure to fully have the blueprint for tackling climate change now. But what's important at this point is really just to soak everything in, to be a sponge, to really try to learn as much as you can about this issue. And that'll only help you down the road. So the second part is to look ahead. Okay, sounds simple enough. Now, if you were to kind of look at where the future of the energy mix in this country is going, pretty much expected. We're going to have a lot of solar, a lot of wind, a lot of hydropower, a lot of renewables, some nuclear, et cetera. But this is the future. This is where we're headed. And the question for you all is, what role do you want to play in helping us get there? But this is, in some sense, inevitability. Now, in high school, I had the pleasure of writing this op-ed. MG&E should be carbon-free by 2030, and that was a crazy ask in some sense. I knew that was not fully realistic. I knew that the world wouldn't end if MG&E didn't reach carbon-free by 2030. But I wrote this in part because I wanted to make a case for why our utility investing in clean energy was a good idea. Knowing that whether or not they adopted this specific target in this case was much less important than bringing a youth perspective and putting it out on the table that the utility should consider establishing an aggressive climate and clean energy goal. Now, at the time, and I don't know if there are any MG&E folks in the crowd, but at the time, many folks said that this was a ridiculous goal, that I had no clue how the energy system worked, that this was impossible and unfeasible. But again, that wasn't the point of the op-ed. And so this was 2017. Interestingly enough, fast forward to now, 6 years later, and what's happened since then? Well, first off, MG&E now has a goal of reducing its carbon emissions by 80% by 2030, which is a very good goal, actually. It's one of the more ambitious greenhouse gas reduction goals in the country of any utility. So isn't that crazy to push for 100% clean energy by 2030? And also Biden has called for 100% clean electricity by 2035 at the national scale. So again, I often think back to high school when I wrote that op-ed and knew in some sense that that was an extremely ambitious, perhaps unrealistic target. But if you actually look at what's happened since then, what was considered unfeasible and impractical and naive is informing a lot of policy decisions in this country, and is not so far-fetched when we think about the goals that folks have espoused since then. So part 3, create your climate action. What does that mean? So some folks may have seen this Venn diagram. One of my favorite climate celebrities is Ayanna Elizabeth Johnson. Does anybody know who she is? Okay, we got some fans in the crowd. She is a big oceans climate action person, but she put together this really helpful Venn diagram, I think, that has in some sense been very informative in how I think about my role in climate action. But there's 3 key questions that you should ask yourself in terms of what role that you want to play in climate action. The first is, what brings you joy? What do you enjoy doing? And that's really important, particularly because, as many folks in this crowd are aware, climate mental health and anxiety, climate anxiety, are very serious issues, perhaps not talked about enough. And this work is extremely fulfilling, but it's also difficult. And so it's really important that, as part of your framework for thinking about climate action and your personal role, that you think about what brings you joy. Because if you didn't get some degree of joy and happiness and fulfillment and community from this work, then why are you doing it? The second is, what are you good at? And now I would say it's totally fine if you're in high school and you don't know what you're good at. That's totally, there's no expectation that you know what that is. Maybe you do, maybe you don't, and that's fine either way. But just, you can start to think about, what are the things that you feel like you're good at? You know, maybe it's you're really good at public speaking and presenting and talking to people. Maybe it's you're really good at doing research and looking at statistics and sort of analyzing data. Maybe it's you're really good at mobilizing people and building campaigns and organizing and rallying other folks to a common cause. Whatever it is, start to think about what you're good at and how it overlaps with what brings you joy. And then the last one is, what work needs doing? Well, this in some sense is a little bit easy to answer because the climate crisis, that's what we need to be tackling. But within that, there's a bunch of other issues that you should be thinking about, whether that's environmental and climate justice, whether that's biodiversity, whether that's regenerative agriculture, whether that's renewable energy. There's a lot of different issues within that that you can think about. And within each of those, there are other issues in terms of what work needs doing. But if you think about these 3 questions, they're really simple questions in some sense, but if you really think deeply about them, this is a good framework for how you can start to think about your climate action. Now, what is this picture? This is what I thought you had to be to work on climate change. I thought you had to be a nuclear engineering scientist with a PhD, and you needed decades of experience working on energy systems modeling and all of that. That's not true. That's what I thought, though. But what I realized is that there's a role for everybody to play in this, and this is just one path, but there's a whole suite of options. And when people say the world is at your fingertips, it's genuinely true. There are a whole range of pathways that you can take. And if this happens to be the route that you want to take, do it. I'm not going to judge you for being a mad scientist, but if you don't want to do this path, that's totally fine too. So when I was in high school, I went to Madison West. Anybody from Madison West in this crowd? Awesome, cool, go Regents. So we, with West Green Club at the time, I had a really great mentor who was also my English teacher, Mr. Grady. I remember being a sophomore in high school, and I was just talking to him. I was like, what can we do to tackle this big question of climate change? You know, we had done a lot of work around composting and recycling, but we want to do something around energy. And so we decided that we would start a solar panel project. We felt like that was a good opportunity for us to reduce the school's reliance on fossil fuels and to bring more clean energy for the school. And so here is me and a couple other folks as part of the Green Club, and MG&E generously gave us this solar panel, and we started this campaign, this Adopt a Solar Panel campaign, where folks could adopt and name a solar panel for $500, and then we ended up raising $150,000 for this solar system. Now, that sounds easy. In fact, it was anything but. When we first pitched this project to the school district, we met with a bunch of skepticism and reasons why we shouldn't do it. The roof needed to be replaced. We didn't have the money. We didn't think there was community support. I laugh at that one because I think probably Dane County has the highest support for clean energy in the country, or one of the highest. But we didn't take that as a no. We didn't take that no for an answer. And so that's what got us to, within the next 2 weeks, we started this petition campaign with our school. We got 500 signatures, so a quarter of the student body, to sign on to this petition saying, hey, school district, let us just even fundraise for this. And then we, over the next year or so, ended up raising those funds. And that led to this. So the panels are in operation right now in the roof of West and covering a good chunk of the school's energy use. It's very kind. And so we were like, okay, great. We've done the panels at our school, but how can we take this a step further? We wanted to scale this effort. And so that's when a bunch of students, community members, parents, grandparents, teachers, alumni, we all got together and were like, let's take this to the next level. We don't want to stop here. And so we started this petition campaign to get the school district to establish a 100% renewable energy resolution. And we felt like this was really important that the school district do this. And we felt like school district level climate action is some of the most important in this country, in part because while there's the symbolic importance of schools really affirming that they're serving youth, which is what they're there for, all your schools are there to serve you as the students. But also, these are very public buildings and institutions that have a lot of trust in the communities. And so if you think about institutions that are important to really be vanguards of climate action, schools are very much up there because they have a big community presence. For most communities in this country, the school has the biggest public presence. And so if we can get the school to be very publicly supportive of climate action, that can lead to a lot of positive benefits for the community and get other households and other folks to mobilize for climate action as well. And so that's why we felt like this was really important. And we drafted this resolution. We worked with some school board members at the time. We arranged meetings. We spoke to them about the importance of this and why we felt like it was critical that they adopt this resolution. And then we started this campaign. We collected a couple thousand signatures from the community, some school board meetings with the superintendent, and then we had folks come and speak. And then in April 2019, so about 3.5 years ago, MMSD passed a resolution for 100% renewable energy by 2040. And at the time, this was the largest school district in the country. Madison was with a 100% renewable energy goal. And since then, we've seen other school districts, including San Francisco and Los Angeles, commit to even greater goals. So I got a chance to speak about this on the Sierra Club podcast. This is, I guess, separate. This was me doing some nuclear research in high school on the side. I don't know why I put that in there, actually. This is the mad scientist. Again, this is like one option. You don't have to do this, though. And I certainly don't do that now. I'm like, I couldn't tell you what any of that means. But I had the honor of, as a result of all of this work, sort of sharing a little bit about my experiences with Congressman Pocan, Senator Baldwin, and I was invited by the White House and the Department of Education as part of this as well. And it was wonderful to be able to speak to my elected officials on the importance of climate action, and I encourage everyone in this room to do that as well, because they're very open to it, and they love to hear from young folks who are passionate about climate action. And I was even invited to the White House with the president. Yeah. And then in college, I had a chance to work on our university sustainability plan. We actually just opened a new Institute for Climate and Sustainability. I worked on a couple different research projects and reports that cover different aspects of the clean energy transition and climate change. So I wrote a report on anything from environmental justice and how states were approaching climate action through 100% clean energy legislation. I wrote about hydrogen in the transportation sector. I wrote about public utility commissions. Who knows what a PSC or public service commission is, by the way? Okay. Well, our goal is by the end of today, everybody in this room knows what a PSC is. We'll get there. And then the last one I wrote about renewable energy, renewable portfolio standards. So in college, I kind of wanted to nerd out on the policy and regulatory side of things, and that was what I chose to do. Oops. And that led me to Rewiring America. Does anyone know what Rewiring America is? Maybe. Okay. So Rewiring America is trying to tackle the question of electrifying everything. So that's anything from your car, so getting it to an electric vehicle. That's anything from your stove, getting it to an induction stove. That's anything from how you power your homes. So instead of using fossil fuels, using rooftop solar. That's how you heat and cool your homes through what's called electric heat pumps. So there's a lot of things in your home that actually contribute to climate change. And so part of Rewiring America, what they're trying to do is make it easier and better for you to switch to the electric appliances that are cleaner, often cheaper, better for the environment, healthier, safer, etc. So that's what I've been doing at Rewiring America. And actually starting next week, I'm switching to a new role with the Department of Energy, helping. So for folks who don't know the Loan Programs Office, it's run by this guy named Jigar Shah, who's one of my childhood climate celebrities, and they have a couple $100 billion of money that they need to get out the door to support climate and clean energy initiatives. So let that sink in, couple $100 billion. There's still a lot of work left that needs to be done with the Inflation Reduction Act. So the work isn't all done. So part 4, find your why. And this is really, really important. For me, it comes down to my parents, in my case. They grew up in China. They immigrated to this country around my age, so in their 20s. This is them, again, around my age. But in college, I had a chance to visit their first home in America in Ann Arbor, Michigan. And that was a really transformative experience for me. I didn't know much about their story. We didn't really talk about their immigrant journey, but I always knew in some level that they had sacrificed so much to come to this country and to raise a family. And for me, that was a sacrifice that I wanted to pay back in some way, or at least acknowledge. And so when I went to their first home in America, which you can see right here in Ann Arbor, that was a really eye-opening kind of experience for me to realize just how simple the lives that they lived were, in terms of not having kind of the luxuries of modern, like, digital technology, et cetera. But also how complex their lives were in terms of the challenges that they dealt with, a feeling of being misunderstood and not belonging, in this country. And so when I went to their first home, I FaceTimed them, and they got to see it. And they haven't been back in the 30 years since they left, even though, as you all know, Michigan is only a state away. But that was this was during COVID. It was a really affirming experience just to understand their story a ton more just being in that space with them. And that deepened my understanding of why I was doing all of this climate work. For me, it's being able to validate the American dream in many ways and really keep that alive so that folks, anybody in this country, have the opportunity to pursue their version of the American dream and make what they want to happen. So it's really important to find your why and what drives you, because that's going to sustain you in the moments, both the good ones and the difficult ones. So I'll close with this last part. And I'm closing with this one because I really do think this is maybe even more important than find your why, maybe the most important thing, which is believe in yourself. I don't know if I did a good job of that in high school. I mean, in some sense, I tried. That's what sustained me to, be able to get the school district to pass that clean energy goal, to continue pushing even when folks were like, don't do this, this is a bad idea, you're being naive, you don't understand how this works. And that's where believing in yourself is really, really important. So I had a chance to give a commencement speech at Harvard earlier this year, in part where I was touching on some of these themes. And I show these pictures, Al Gore, Dr. Robert Bullard, who is the father of environmental justice, and Bill McKibben, who is one of the authors that I respect more than anybody. In part because I think if you told me in high school, when I first started working on climate, that I'd have a chance to even just meet folks like these three, I wouldn't have believed you. I wouldn't have really believed in myself that that was something that would ever happen to me. But it did. In part because I worked to get there, of course, but believing in yourself is super important. And as part of that, finding good mentors who believe in you is really important too. They're out there. I bet a lot of them are in the crowd over there or here. This was actually 2 weeks ago where I had a chance to speak on community solar at the time headquarters. And then this was 2 days ago. For folks who don't know these two individuals standing next to me, the one on the left is the previously mentioned Jigger Shah, one of my climate idols. And then the one on the right is Leah Stokes, who some of you may know as somebody who really speaks on the importance of climate policy. And both of them have been huge mentors of mine, even when they may not have known that. And I think that's really important, is to find the folks who will believe in you, who will take a chance on you, who see your value and your worth, and will help you accomplish the dreams that you want to have. So I'll just stop there and say that, I have no clue where the heck my climate journey is going to take me. I'm only probably 5 or 7 years older than most of the folks in this crowd. And when I was in high school, I certainly could not have forecasted how things were going to go. And I can't forecast what things are going to look like in the next year, 5 years, 10 years, 20, 50. I can't even forecast what tomorrow is going to look like. And that's fine. You don't need to have everything figured out, but just be present, enjoy the ride, because it is a fun ride. We need all of you. Your contributions to the climate crisis are so critical. If we didn't have you all here, and this is really impressive, by the way, to all the organizers, if we didn't have you here, we would be so much worse along with the climate crisis. So thanks for all the work that you're doing, and keep at it, because we need you.
Thank you so much, Charles. I'm truly blown away. Now we'll take some questions for Charles if any of you have any questions. If not, I'll kick us off. I am wondering, when you started off, when you were doing work with your school district and collecting petition signatures, what were some strategies that you used to really energize all of those people and get them on board with your mission?
Yeah, thanks for that question. I think that's probably like one of the greatest assets that like we have as youth is we know how personal this issue is in terms of climate change. We know that we've grown up with this issue and we care so much about this in a way that's so intensely personal. And that is a sense of energy and fuel and momentum that is so valuable. And capture that. Like the fact that you all are here on a Saturday morning listening to folks talk about climate change and being part of the conversation shows how much you care. So find the other folks that you know who care like you, and it seems like a lot of people in a lot of schools have done that so well. And so you can start small. It doesn't need to be like, you don't need to get your school district to pass 100% renewable energy resolution. You can start small, like find a couple other friends or classmates or teachers, whoever it is. Figure out what it is that you want to do. So in our case, it was raise money for solar panels. And then just be really focused on the mission. And if you have a very clear mission, in our case, again, raise money for solar panels, then that helps you then have the focus to figure out why you feel like that's important. And then when you're sharing about that with other people in terms of why they should sign on to a petition, they're going to feel your energy. And not everybody's going to know every single thing about solar panels or whatever it is that you want to get other folks to do. But they will respond to your energy and they'll be really excited to kind of keep that going. And you'll get some folks to really be part of your cause that way.
All right, thank you so much. Do we have any other questions from the audience?
Hello, I am June. I'm from New Jersey, and I'm a gap year student. I'm taking a gap year before I go to college. So I'm doing step one. I'm trying to be a sponge. I'm trying to attend climate events and learn more about climate change and the environment before I go to college. And I'm learning about careers. I'm trying to do research on careers, and I think research is not really for me because it's a little too slow. And so I stumbled upon the career environmental policy. So I have a question. What are things that you like about environmental policy? What are things you might not like? I've heard on the internet, like some people, depending on the job, like that they can go out in the field. Some people like that they're more in the office. So I'd like to hear what you like and don't like about your job.
You came from New Jersey all the way for this?
No.
Okay.
Well, my dad moved here, so I came with him.
Okay, fair enough. Well, that's cool. So it's a great question. For me, I think very early on, I realized that policy was what I loved. Policy is a very broad term, first of all. It covers anything from like the Inflation Reduction Act, right? When people think about climate policy, that might be something that they think of, like this big federal climate legislation. I'd say being part of DCYC is in itself a form of policy because you are serving in the public domain. I would say doing research to inform policy is also quote unquote part of policy. So policy is a very broad term. So if you have some conception of what policy is, realize that it's probably even broader than that. And so for me, why I felt like policy was important and why it aligned with what I want to do, if you think back to that Venn diagram, it's because it was a good combination for me of something that was data-driven and quantitative. I've always loved numbers and statistics, but also there was a human element to it that was really important, like in the sense that policy really impacts people's lives. and has the chance to impact a large number of folks' lives. It's very fulfilling to me as a result of that. I think also being able to deal with a range of different stakeholders, from your utility companies to your public service commissioners and regulators, to your state legislators, to your clean energy companies and your solar cooperatives, et cetera. Being able to tackle tough questions with a wide range of different stakeholders is always very exciting to me. And so that was what I loved about policy. It's not perfect, though. I think one thing about policy making that I think policymakers should do a heck of a better job on in general is really connecting with the people and communities that the policy is intended to serve. I think that sometimes policies can be developed in a vacuum, and I think that's where folks serving in policy roles that really do try to connect with people. I think Kathy is a great example of that, by the way. I don't know where she is, but I think Kathy is a wonderful example of that. It's super useful, and we need to see more of it, because if the policymakers in the room aren't listening to the people that the policy is trying to serve, then what are we doing, right? And I think if that's something that interests you, follow the 5 steps. Like, first, be a sponge. So read up on a bunch of policies or whatever. Just read on the news in terms of what climate solutions people are advancing. Figure out and look to the future. Think about what are the policy issues moving forward that you're really interested in. Maybe it's you want to stop the build out of fossil fuels in this country. Okay, that's definitely a policy issue that you can think about. Find your why is important. Why is it that drives you? I guess I skipped a step, which is create your climate action, right? So like, think about what you bring to the table in policy, then find your why, and then believe in yourself. Hopefully that answers your question.
All right, we have time for one more quick question. Anybody have soul? All right. Thank you so much. Amazing presentation. Here you go. Make sure to say your name, where you're from, and your question.
Hello, Mr. Hua. My name is Camille Harrell. I'm from Milwaukee. I go to Rufus King, and I'm with Reflow. My question is, like, how did you know when what you were doing was from small scale to big scale, or did you ever think that or did you ever have a moment of doubt? Like, did you always know what you were doing was a big thing, or did you ever like have a moment where you thought it was like small and then like, wow, I got here?
Yeah, actually in high school, I knew that on November 11th, 2023, I'd be standing here in front of you talking about climate change. And you came from Milwaukee for this? Wow. That's great. No, I had no clue. I had absolutely no clue. First off, like, again, it's an incredible honor that you all are having me here. Like, again, in high school, I don't think I would have ever pictured that. I think I had some orientation, of course. Like, I kind of shared with you all, I knew that I always liked numbers and statistics. I liked, but I also liked talking to people. I liked kind of community engagement and working with different stakeholders. I liked policy, et cetera. But no, I often had moments of doubt. I think that's inevitable. I mean, which high schooler in this country doesn't have moments of doubt, I think that's where, for me, like, the believe in yourself is really important. If you don't believe in yourself, who will? And part of what I mean by, like, seek out mentors is that sometimes when you don't believe in yourself, which is so fair and valid, there are a bunch of people in this world that do believe in you, even if you might not know. And for me, I found out that a lot of that was the mentors that I had. So that was anybody from my English teacher in high school, who really tried to believe in myself, to my second grade teacher, who believed in all of his students. and just being able to kind of work through problems that way, like I said, with the West High Solar project, it wasn't all it wasn't always easy. I think when we had initially set a goal of raising $25,000 for the solar panels, and even then people were like, yeah, good luck, there's no way. And it was just me and my high school teacher that really believed in ourselves. That was the very, very early stages. And then we not only surpassed that goal, but far exceeded that. So absolutely, there were moments of doubt. And I think in those moments, it really helps, again, to if you've done the other steps, like particularly the find your why. Why are you doing climate action? Why do you care about climate justice? Ask yourself these questions. I think they're important. Don't take them for granted. It's not just because we're youth that we care about climate action. Really reflect on that question, because that'll power you through the moments where you have self-doubt. And heck, I continue to have doubt sometimes. I mean, I think I have a much better sense of what I want to do than I did 5 years ago, but I think it's totally natural. And if you didn't, then you would probably be overconfident. And so don't shy away from that, really lean into it and embrace it. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much. Wow. All right. Now, as you continue to reflect on this amazing presentation, we'll take a break. And if you have any more questions for Charles, feel free to ask at lunch. He'll be around. But yeah, we'll take a quick break, and I'll be back by around 10:05.